The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Whew, that was a lot of work. That was more work than the damn draft itself. Double the amount of prospects for dudes that's not going to be on the roster. That was too much damn work, I must say. But the juice is worth the squeezing because you just never know, right? I do want to say this. In comparison to last year's group, I think last year's group was better. They were definitely more athletic. They were younger. And I thought there was more upside and promise with last year's group, to be honest with you. Doesn't mean that there won't be one or two guys, maybe a third, that ends up being here and that ultimately has a role on this team. Because I could see a pathway for several of these guys to be here in some capacity. I don't think any of these players, not a single one, is going to make this roster this year. Unlike last year, where multiple guys, 2, made the roster, and I think another 3 of them, let me see. Chigozie Anusium was on the practice squad. Michael Wiley was on the practice squad. And they kept Ben Nickel around as well. So if I'm not mistaken, those were the only 3 that they kept around of the guys that they had last year as UDFAs, in addition to the 2 that actually made the team, Tyler Owens and Colston Yankoff. So 5 guys last year stuck around. Anusium ended up getting signed off our practice squad to the Browns active roster towards the latter portion of the season. I think the other 2 are still around. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. And I know Nickel was still here at one point, but nonetheless, this is an old ass group of prospects. God damn. Like, I hope this is the last year of these COVID babies, because boy, it's a lot of 24s and 25s and sheesh. Dudes that started their collegiate careers in 2018, 7-year collegiate career. Like, this shit is insane. I digress. That's right, Sam Hartman as well. Good pull. Red Wings. So I think 6 of them. So last year's group, and again, you have to also take into consideration that last year's group was the first group of a total rebuild or recalibration, and thus there were more opportunities for guys to crack the roster. There were more opportunities for guys to be on the practice squad. There are going to be less of those opportunities this year with them being in the second year of this recalibration. Obviously, the process has been sped up a bit. The timeline has been moved up. I don't want to say slightly because that's being disingenuous. The timeline has been moved up very rapidly because of the success of the first year. Thus, more veterans have been brought in to try to help this team immediately. And so there's not as many roster spots up for grabs, I don't believe, as there was a season ago. And taking it a step further, you've added more guys from last year's draft, and you've added guys last year that are here that are, working. And so there's already some guys here, whereas last year the cupboard was basically bare, right? They were filling everything up because they were getting rid of a lot of dead weight in their estimation. They've already filled the cabinet back up. And so, yeah, there's a couple of spots available, but for the most part, what's done is done. So these guys have an uphill battle. As UDFAs often do. But as I've said before, this roster is not complete. There will be opportunities. Can any of these guys take advantage of those opportunities? We'll find out. Rookie minis started today, which is why I wanted to do this today, right? And so let's jump into this process. I won't talk your head off. We'll just get right to the proceedings this evening and talk about all 10 of these UDFA prospects and what they bring to the table and what are some of the things that will allow them to potentially have a shot to stick around on this roster. So we'll start with Carlin Viggers, cornerback out of Louisiana, Monroe. And I'm going to tell you, he's got a legitimate shot at sticking around. I don't think he's going to make this roster. So let's start there. I'm going to be very candid tonight with these guys because it's tough for these guys to crack the roster. So I'm not going to bullshit you. However, you know that they like Carlin Viggers. We've talked about him. His name has been one that we have discussed plenty of times prior to the draft taking place. None of us thought he was going to get drafted by this team, but we did know that as soon as the draft was over, should Carlin Viggers not be drafted, which he wasn't, he would be a target of this team, and he was. He was guaranteed $259,000, which is the second most of any Commander's UDFA. So it tells you how badly they wanted to have him here as a guy that they could bring to camp, work with, lay eyes on, lay hands on, and see if he could be someone that ultimately pushes for a roster spot, but I think more likely pushes for one of those 16 practice squad spots, right? So 6'1", 205 pounds, as you can see here in front of you with the Ross score. Ran a 4.5 240, 38-inch vert, 10 broad. So all of those are really good and solid numbers. The 40 time is solid when you couple it with his arm length, which is damn near 33 inches, which is tremendous for a corner, and his 6'1" frame. So when you look at his entire body of work, when you put all of that together, the 4.52 is 4.48, if you will, right? Now, he played in 35 career games, only 12 starts, however, all right, all of which came in 2024. So he's only got 1 year of starting experience. So that's something to note. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. He's got 4 tackles for loss in his career, a sack, 6 PBUs in his career, 2 interceptions in his career, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 block kick in his career. In 2024, of those 4 tackle for losses, 2 of them happened. The sack that he had in his career came in 2024. One of those 6 PBUs came in 2024, and one of his 2 career interceptions came in 2024. So for the most part, a lot of the damage that he did in his career came in 2024, which is a good thing. As a starter, he was able to produce. So his pros, all right? His frame is the first thing that catches your eye. 6'1", 205 pounds. So you like the weight. Can't be pushed around and jostled by bigger receivers. He's going to be able to stand his ground. 6'1" gives you that height you're looking for, right? And then he's got those long arms. Again, reminds me a lot of guys like Dick Sherman, Josh Norman, who weren't the tallest guys, but had long arms. And Nnamdi Asomugha was one of the best corners that's an illustration of how longer arms can really help supplement you from a speed, tracking the ball down the field. You may be out of the play You know, you may not be in phase, but you're never out of the play because of the length of your arms. So I think that's the first thing that catches your eye with Carlin Viggers. Next pro, plays the cornerback position with a special teams demeanor. What do I mean by that? He plays the position like hell on wheels, right? He gets in the receiver's face. He's aggressive with them. He wants to get in the mix and make tackles, right? Most corners you see, they really don't want to tackle for real. Like most corners, they rather just be bystanders, right? They rather just watch. They got the best seat in the house. If y'all need me, holla. That's how most corners approach tackling. Like, I really don't want to get in there if I don't have to. Carlin Viggers wants the smoke. He wants to get in there. Now, it's not always the best tackling form. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he's willing to get in the mix. He's got good eye discipline from off coverage. I love the way he attacks the football when he's in off coverage and he sees it and he goes. It's a thing of beauty to watch. I think that's where he's at his best. I don't love him in press, although he likes to at times come up and challenge receivers. I don't love him in press because he's not twitchy. We'll talk about that here in a bit. And so he can be had off the line of scrimmage, and it won't end well for him against NFL wide receivers. If he tries that, you can get away with it at Louisiana Monroe. You're not getting away with that against NFL caliber wide receivers on a consistent basis. But from off coverage, when he sees it and he plants his foot in the ground and drives, I love it. It looks good. It's clean. And that allows him to stay. You're going to give up catches playing off coverage. You're going to give up the 5-yard hitch. You're going to give up the quick out, right? The speed cut. But he sees it, he attacks, and he's there upon the ball arriving. So it's an immediate tackle. There's not a lot of yards after the catch, so forth and so forth. Almost picked off Arch Manning. So to me, the only game that you needed to watch for him was Texas. Like if you can hold your own against the Texas Longhorns and all the talent that they put on the field, Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden, who ended up being a first-round pick, and all of those guys that they put out there, if you're able to hold your own and not embarrass yourself, then you have a chance to play it on Sundays, right? So we'll talk about that in a second. He almost picked off Arch Manning from off coverage. He was playing Jaden Blue, who was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys man-to-man on the outside. He was playing off, eyeballing Arch Manning. He saw Arch Manning looking to throw the hitch. He drove on the hitch, and if that ball was thrown directly to Jaden Blue, it's a pick six. Instead, he threw it towards the outside, and I think right when he was about to release it, he saw Carlin Viggers out of his peripheral driving on that thing, forced him to throw it towards the sidelines, and it's a good thing he did, or it's going the other way for 6. Can disrupt routes early and stay in phase down the field as a result. So when he is at his best at staying in phase as routes develop down the field, he does his work early. It's like a basketball player. How if you're a post player, you want to do your work early. What do you mean by do your work early? You want to establish post position before you even get the ball. The better you can establish post position, the closer you can, position yourself to the basket, the better it is for you. The faster you can get the ball up before a double team or help may be able to come. Same thing here. He's able to do his work at the beginning of the route, right? As that receiver releases, he's able to get into his body, to be physical with him, slow him down, which then allows him to turn and run and stay in his hip pocket and stay in phase. When he doesn't get off a proper jam, or if he just turn and runs, it allows receivers free access. And then that's when he can get into trouble, because as you can see with his composite speed grade on this Ross, he doesn't have great short area quickness, right? You see the 10-yard split, it's not good, right? The 20-yard split isn't great. It's not terrible, but it's not great, okay? So it gets better as he continues to run. He's a build-up speed guy. But again, in order for him to get to a point where that build-up speed is able to come into play, he's got to slow that guy down at the beginning of the route. And you see that on tape. When he doesn't, it doesn't end well for him. right? So then he's got really good special teams ability. I think that's something else that drew the team to him, is that he can come in immediately and help. Like, instead of us continuing to have Kayvon Seymour on this roster or hovering around the roster as a practice squad guy that they trust on special teams, why not get a guy that you're grooming to play the cornerback position that can actually also help and double as a special teams guy, instead of just a guy that just plays special teams in Kayvon Seymour, right? Like, none of us want to see Kayvon Seymour on the field. If you're playing special teams, that's cool, right? I trust Kayvon Seymour to do his job on special teams. None of us want to see him playing cornerback. Well, Carlin Viggers can play special teams at a very high clip. So he's got a block kick as well under his belt. So he's a gunner. He's a guy that's gotten down there and made tackles in college. And it's because he's only started for 1 year, he had to cut his teeth as a special teams player. You kind of like that, because most guys who are stars don't play special teams, or at least not at a high level. So the experience there is vital for him to be able to transition, because sometimes when you get a guy that plays at, a lesser school, he's the star of the team, he ain't playing special teams. But because he's great in college, he's just another dude at the NFL level. He's going to need special teams, and if he doesn't have experience, it hurts him, right? And then finally, the Texas tape is a pro. I don't think we're having this conversation about Carlin Viggers if the Texas game doesn't exist. He played well. He held up his end of the bargain. He only gave up 1 catch for 19 yards against Matthew Golden. Had a pass breakup in the end zone. I told you he almost had a pick 6 on a play where they motioned out Jaden Blue out of the backfield. He had out deep third on the outside. He drove on it, almost picked it off. Had about three pass breakups in that game. Did Carlin Viggers. So he acquitted himself well. And I think that's a large part of why he's here now as a UDFA. Cons, not twitchy at all. Not twitchy at all. Transitions can be clunky and slow. And again, this goes back to my original point of he's got to do his work early. Okay. There are times where he tries to get up and press, and the receiver runs a slant, and he gets him to open up his hips. And now he's kind of scrambling, trying to get back into play. It's not fun to watch. It's very, very slow. The transitions are very, very slow. When he flips his hips, they can be a little sticky. So again, his thing is to be physical early, right? If you're going to come up and press, you better not miss. And if you're off, eyes are important, so you can get downhill and drive on the football, make a tackle, right? Which is what he's done very well in his career. Tackling technique needs refinement. So I talked about how he's a guy that plays the cornerback position like he's playing special teams. I love the fact that he's about that action and he wants to get in the fray, but he's either head hunting when he goes to tackle, or he's shooting your cuffs. He's going straight for your legs. There's really no in between, right? I was proud of him. The very first play against Texas, he's on special teams on the kickoff. Matthew Golden runs the kickoff back, and he makes a solid form tackle in his midsection. I was like, hey, how about that? Look at that. Then the rest of the game, he was back to his shenanigans. He had a beautiful blitz off the edge against Jaden Blue where it should have been a tackle for loss for like 4 yards. And head hunting like he always is. He goes straight for his head. Jaden Blue ducks. He misses the tackle. Blue gets away. It ends up turning into a gain of like 3 or 4. Should have been a loss of 4 or 5, right? So he's either shooting your cuffs or he's going head hunting. And That's no way to live. There's face mask penalties. There's missed tackles. There's a lot of shit that comes with headhunting and none of it is good, by the way. And then shooting cuffs. He missed a tackle in the Texas game where he just ducked his head, went to shoot the cuffs, didn't see what he was hitting. Ole, he missed, right? And that happens when you don't see what you're hitting, when you just go to shoot cuffs instead of aiming for the waist, looking to wrap a guy up properly. That's what happens. You miss tackles. So he needs to be better in that regard. Doesn't have the long speed to be aggressive with NFL wide receivers and not twitchy enough to affect them from off coverage. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? If you come up and want to be aggressive, these NFL receivers have a great way of getting off press with tremendous releases. NFL play callers have great ways of scheming up guys open, putting them in motion, bunches, stacks, things of that nature, so you can't get a press off, so you can't be aggressive, put your hands on guys. And so he's going to struggle in that regard because NFL receivers are going to beat him off the line of scrimmage, and then he won't be able to recover because he's not quick enough. Then if he's off, it's free lunch, right? Because he's not twitchy enough to drive on the football to force incompletions. And so if he's off 7 yards, gets into a slow back pedal, right? Doesn't want the receiver to step on his toes. NFL receivers are going to threaten him like they're going vertical and snap it off at 5 yards. He's going to bail out of there. Now he's at 10 to 12 yards. By the time he sticks his foot in the ground to go downhill, that ball's caught. He's probably going to come up head hunting. They're going to duck under that tackle attempt. And now we're off to the races, right? We saw this with Michael Davis last year, right? Playing off and soft against Malik Neighbors, giving up free lunch underneath. All right, well, if you're going to give up free lunch, at least make the tackle. Then he comes up, whiffs on the tackle, and all of a sudden a 5 to 7 yard gain turns into a 17 to 22 yard gain. That's the type of shit that's going to happen to Carlin Viggers at the NFL level, right? And then last but not least, he's only got 1 year of starting experience. You could look at that one of two ways, right? I think most times coaches look at it in a positive light, like, hey, he's raw, right? Like we can clean up some of those deficiencies. We can get him right. It's not a big deal. On the flip side of that is 1 year starting experience. And so you're very green. You got a lot of lessons to learn. And we don't have time for you to learn those, during a game on the job training. Like you're going to have to get that in practice and in other ways. But it's tough to get that kind of experience without actually playing in the game. The problem is we don't want to be the ones to give you. It's just like when you first started hunting for a job, when you first got into the workforce, right? What did you run into? What was the issue you ran into? You don't have any experience, and the jobs that you're applying for, they don't want to give you the experience. They want you to already have experience. Well, how the hell am I supposed to get it if you won't give it to me, right? Well, it's tough in the NFL because some teams are like, if you've got the traits, we're willing to take the headaches. We're willing to take the bumps and the lumps that come with you figuring it out on the job training. Carlin Viggers doesn't have enough traits for you to say, yeah, we're willing to take the lumps. So it's a double-edged sword. While on one hand, hey, he doesn't have bad habits, or the ones that he does have, they're not too ingrained. We can change him. We can get him to be better. On the other hand, he doesn't have enough experience, and we're not in a position to allow him to get that, just tossing him out there into the fire, right? So anyway, I digress. So that's Carlin Viggers. Remember, they spent the second most money on him in with their UDFA. So keep that in mind. He was a name that was very hot during the process. They like this kid, so don't dismiss him. If you ask me, he's going to end up more likely than not, and I want to see him in the preseason, obviously. I think he's got a really good shot at ending up on the practice squad. But he's not the only corner that they brought in here as a UDFA. And we'll talk about that other corner here in a bit. But that's Carlin Viggers. All right, we move on to the next guy. And it's Tim McKay. So Tim McKay is the guy that they spent the most money on here in with their UDFAs. And we'll talk about Tim McKay and what he brings to the table. So they spent $275,000 of guaranteed money on Tim McKay. It is the most of any Commander UDFA, and it is the second most in the entire National Football League. Only a Tampa Bay Buccaneer offensive lineman who got $300K got more guaranteed money during the UDFA period than Tim McKay. So that tells you just how much they wanted Tim McKay. So again, the only reason I bring up money is because it shows you how much they wanted him and how much competition there was out there. You're not just going to throw $275,000 guaranteed to a guy if you're the only suitor. I don't have to do that. I don't need to outbid myself. There were other teams that wanted Tim McKay. It pushed the price up and they were willing to pay. So it tells you that he's a guy that they want to work with. Now, I also think offensive line coaches of all positional coaches, they think they can maximize the talent of guys more so than any other, coach and position group. Offensive line coaches always see the best in guys and think I can get that out of him. So I always feel like when it comes to UDFAs, offensive linemen are always going to be among the ones that get the most money spent on them. Now, it's a little bit interesting with Tim McKay. We'll get into his whole situation and why I think the 275 is important. He's 6'3" and 3/4. So for all intents and purposes, he's 6'4", right? 311 pounds. Played in 48 games in his career at NC State. 26 of those games he started, 10 at right tackle, and then 16 at right guard. His final 16 starts were all at right guard, which is what he projects to be at the NFL level. He allowed 18 total pressures and 2 sacks in 2024. No sacks allowed in 2023 in his 6 starts. There was over 11 or almost 1,100 snaps logged in that 2-year span, and he only gave up 2 sacks and just over 20 pressures, right? So that's something to note. He had a standout week at the East-West Shrine Bowl, was named to the all-practice team for the West squad. Only 12 players get named to the all-practice squad, and it was 75 players on the West squad. So out of 75 players, he was one of 12 to be given that distinction. So he played, and only 2 offensive linemen were given that distinction on the West squad. So that means he was among the best out there at the East-West Shrine game. And I think that's how he got on the Commander's radar, to be honest with you, right? His pros, he's got solid arm length. As you can see, over 34-inch arms. You generally don't get that on a guy with a 6'3", almost 6'4" frame. So he's got abnormally long arms for his height. And he's got really solid movement skills, right? You watch him pull and get out of his stance. It's kind of explosive. And that vert that you see there kind of hints at that a bit. The short area movement, not bad. So short area quickness was actually pretty impressive. Getting to the second level. he can find work at the second level. So one of the things that did impress me was his movement skills. He's got a well-constructed frame, and his mass is distributed very proportionately. So, sometimes guards can be a little sloppy. He's a shorter guy, so you could be top heavy, you can be bottom heavy. His is kind of spread out evenly, which is what you look for in offensive linemen. I talked about that with our first-round pick, Josh Connolly Jr., where his mass is evenly distributed throughout his frame. And so that helps with movement skills, redirection, things of that nature. Physically shows a willingness to stay in the fight against bigger D linemen. Most times so again, when I'm watching guys, I want to see you against elite competition. I wanted to see him against an SEC school. Like, that's what's going to tell me, are you cut out for this life or not? I watched him against Tennessee. It was a bloodbath. It wasn't pretty. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. It wasn't pretty. But he fought his ass off. He fought his balls off, and he was willing to compete. He was willing to stay in the fight, and he didn't back down. He strains for every inch and is capable of holding up just enough in pass pro. Oftentimes with him, it is not pretty. And we're going to talk about why it's not pretty. But it gets the job done. And I remember Chris Cooley talking about two separate grades that you get. One grade you get for, did you execute the task? And then the second grade is, did you fundamentally do it correctly? Right? How did you complete the task? He's never going to get a good grade on how it looks and did he fundamentally do it the right way and correctly. He'll most times get good marks for just getting the job done, right? And then he's got versatility. I already told you he had 10 starts at right tackle and then another 16 at right guard. So he's not playing tackle at the NFL level. He's a guard through and through, but it doesn't hurt that he has some experience there. So cons, slightly undersized for the position. Look, as you can see, his composite size grade is okay. Generally, you want your guard to be 6'4", and he's almost 6'4", but generally you want your guard to be 6'5", 6'6". You want these big, hulking, physically imposing guys mauling people at the guard position, right? Which he is not, but it's not a big deal. It's not like he's 6'1", right? Too often plays with a wide base. This is a big problem for me because watching him in the Tennessee game, he was getting bulldozed consistently in this game. Now, there was some big mofos across from him in that game, and they were big as shit, and they were just having their way. Like, it's funny because he allowed 18 total pressures and 2 sacks in 2024. I'm like, shit, did all of them come in the Tennessee game? Because felt like he was giving up pressure after pressure, and he gave up a sack. I watched him give up a sack, and it felt like pressure after pressure after pressure. And I'm like, shit, does it get any better? I had to go watch another game just to make sure that this isn't life for him. And it wasn't. It was the competition. But I'm like, shit, that's NFL competition there, bro. So that wasn't pretty at all. His base is so wide that he can't, come to balance. Your feet shouldn't be too much further than shoulder width apart. His feet are too wide. It causes him to be off balance. He can't anchor because his base is too wide, and now he's on skates, right? But an even bigger problem for me is his hand placement. It's very inconsistent. At best, it's inconsistent. That's probably putting it mildly. He takes this weird, awkward, wide grab approach instead of hands inside the plates. His hands are always in a grab position on the outside. It's nasty. It allows guys to get into his chest, drive him back instead of him delivering the initial blow and having it be nice and tight. That's why you see offensive linemen with their hands like this, because it's so important to keep it tight inside the chest plate. And you always hear the most direct point to something is straight, right? When you're doing this shit, the bear hug shit, that gives the guy, a defensive lineman, a chance to just come straight into your chest and push you back. So his hand placement, you see how his hands are right there? How they're out just in that picture right there. That's how his hands are. Out here, right? And instead of him bringing them here and punching with them, he just grabs and latches. It's not great technique. But again, that can be corrected. And I'm pretty sure that's why they were intrigued by him. Can be beat across his face off the snap. I saw that in the Tennessee game a ton. Again, as I continued to watch him in other games, it wasn't as big of an issue. But again, the guys that he were playing against in the other game that I watched, they weren't as dynamic as the Tennessee defensive linemen. So he was able to hold his own. Now, there were really like only 2 Tennessee defensive linemen that were kicking his ass. When they would sub out and put the other guys in, he would hold his own and he would be fine. But the starters for Tennessee on their D-line, problem. Doesn't move men. He's not a man mover, right? He's not this guy that's going to be creating havoc and, erasing the line of scrimmage and creating a new one. So his double teams and chips are largely ineffective to me. Like if I'm a tackle and I'm being asked to make a reach block, oftentimes the guard's job is to hold that guy up just enough so that the tackle can get onto him. And now the guard can go up to the second level and seek out contact, right? Seek out a defender. His little chip, his little nudge is largely ineffective. They swat him away like a fly. And then when he goes on a double team, you expect double teams to move guys, right? You're talking about 600, close to 700 pounds of mass pushing a guy against his will. You would like to think that that's going to result in some movement. And it just doesn't feel like he generates much movement when he gets on double teams. Like when you watch Josh Connolly, if there's a wash down block, like someone's engaged, his guard is engaged and he washes him down, that dude, he's clearing out space, bro. Like he's washing a guy down another gap and a half. Like I'm just not getting that from Tim McKay. And then to me, his athletic limitations cap his ceiling. Like even if the Commanders were to get their hands on him, clean up his base, get him to be more consistent with his hand placement, because it's not always terrible, but clean it up and get it pristine, right? And get him to take proper angles and get him to do everything right. Athletically, he's still not up to par to be consistent enough at the NFL level. So he's, to me, the ceiling on Tim McKay is a backup offensive lineman. It's not a starter, if you ask me. And then this is why the money was important with him. He tore his pec muscle at his pro day, right? Which is why you don't have a 40-yard dash or anything like that. He tore his pec muscle at his pro day. So when he was doing the bench, see, he only has 16 bench reps, tore his pec muscle, right? So he was going to be drafted probably in the 5th or 6th round, more likely than not. And once he tore his pec, that was it. He went undrafted. So the Commanders are taking advantage of a guy that they probably thought was going to get drafted that didn't because of his situation. And that's why they had to pay so much money to get him, because they weren't the only team invested and involved, because this is a guy that probably would have gotten drafted if not for the pec injury, right? So Hence the amount of money that the Commanders gave up for Tim McKay. So that's Tim McKay in a nutshell. I think he's a backup interior offensive lineman, which we could use, right? Nothing wrong with that. We could use an interior offensive lineman. So, I wouldn't put it past them to, he feels like another guy that they would love to stash on the practice squad and work with. Next up, Cam Arnold, linebacker out of BC. Cam Arnold is a guy that he's so intriguing to me. But watching his tape is so disappointing because it's all there, right? It's all there, but football IQ wise, mentally, it's just not there, right? Not yet, at least. And I don't know if it's ever going to get there. This is a guy that was a 4-year starter. So shit, if it ain't there by now, I don't think it's going to get there, right? Cam Arnold, linebacker out of Boston College. Commanders guaranteed him $65K. It's the second least amount that they paid to any of their UDFAs, at least the ones that we were able to, or at least the ones I was able to acquire a figure on. So didn't have to pay him a ton of guaranteed money, which means there wasn't a big market for him and his services. And so, and I get it. I understand why when you watch tape, but 6 feet, 227 pounds. So clearly undersized, right? But the 227 isn't a big deal in today's NFL, right? That's honestly, that's more of the going rate than 236 pounds at the linebacker position. So, especially if you're talking about like a nickel backer or some sort of specialized linebacker. Ran a 4.58 40, 38-inch vert and a 10.3 broad. So athletically, he checks all the boxes. He feels more in line with what the Commanders have been doing these past 2 drafts. Remember, we're one of the top raw score drafting teams, even down to our UDFAs, right? Tyler Owens was an alien last year. And so were so many of the other guys. Colson Yankoff, also a guy that was extremely talented from an athletic profile standpoint. A lot of the guys last year that we brought in here, were highly athletic. So he fits that mold. Not a lot of the guys this year do, when it's all said and done. So he's kind of more in line than what they've been looking for. 10.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 9 PBUs, 3 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles in 43 total career starts. Okay. Started his career as a defensive back, and you can tell because his movement skills mirror that of a guy that used to play in the secondary. He's very comfortable in space. Made the switch to linebacker in his sophomore season and pretty much played the linebacker position from that point forward. His 2024 season ended prematurely after 7 games due to an upper body injury. One of the things that get on my nerves with college is that they do not have to disclose what the injury actually is. So they just give you like a vague general description. Oh, it's a lower body injury. And they don't have to tell you if he tore his ACL or if he tore his Achilles. So you don't find that stuff out. It's what's actually wild is I watched the game where he got hurt against Virginia Tech. That was the game where Basul Tootin went crazy, but also fumbled a couple of times in that game. And Cam Arnold, on the play that he gets injured, actually forces a fumble. The quarterback takes off and runs. He hits him from behind. Ball comes out. But it's like his teammate lands on him sort of, weird. It looked nondescript. And he rolls over and just lays on the ground and doesn't get up. And so I'm thinking it was some sort of a neck issue. That's what it looked like to me. My guess is it was some sort of a stinger and it just never got better. I don't know. You know, that's what it looked like to me. When a guy rolls over that slowly, it's something going on there that's not normal. And then he just laid on the field. And then his season was done. So pros, athletic profile. As you can see, you're staring at his raw scores and they're off the charts. He's twitchy, he's fast, he's explosive, got the short shuttle, everything checks, right? Everything checks. Next pro, hustles, plays hard, and doesn't shy away from contact. Translation, your baby has a very cute outfit on, right? Very comfortable in space from his time as a safety. You can tell that he's not a fish out of water when he has to be 15 yards away from the line of scrimmage. When he's in a back pedal or when he's turning in a zone turn, eyeballing the quarterback and getting into his zone drops. He's very comfortable because he's done that, you know, throughout his career, whether it was in high school or his early days in college as a defensive back. So he's very comfortable in space. He continued to improve in his career as the years went on. Remember, he started out as a defensive back. So his first year as a sophomore at linebacker, right, he was going to be raw. That was his first year playing linebacker ever. Second year was only his second year. You know, his junior year was only his second year playing linebacker, so forth and so forth. So, you know, by the time he got to his final year, he was starting to hit his stride. He was playing better, but the instincts just still were not there, right? Tons of starting experience. He had 43 career starts. So that's always a plus, right? The more football you play, the better the better it benefits you, the more it benefits you. Cons, he struggles with the mental aspect of the game, so his athleticism rarely gets to shine. He doesn't process what he's seeing very well in front of him. It's really disappointing because when you see these numbers and you think about and you see his movement skills and you see how twitchy he is, you're like, this guy can be a problem. And then when you watch him, it's like he's playing in slow motion and everyone else is playing at like 1.5 or 2, at 2 speed. And he's just kind of speed and a half behind. And you're just like, bro, go, right? You don't see this? You don't see outside zone right now? Go. And it's almost like he's not trusting what he's seeing. He's a step or two slow. By the time he sees it and he tries to react, well, now the guard's getting up on him. And once he gets blocked, which the next con is once blocked, usually stays blocked. He doesn't slip or shed blocks often enough. This next con is the biggest con. I put in all caps, always late to the party. Don't invite him to the party and ask him to bring something that you know you're going to need at the beginning of the party. Like cups. Don't ask him to bring cups. Tell him to bring ice, right? Because you probably already got some ice. If not, you probably can get some out of the freezer and you can have enough ice. Because normally you're going to tell 3 or 4 people to bring ice any damn way. So if he doesn't show up for the first 2 hours, you're still cool on ice. When he gets there, he brings the ice. Great, we got more ice. Don't ask him to bring some shit that you're going to need at the beginning of the party. Don't ask him to bring plates or cups or cutlery. None of that shit, because it ain't getting there on time. He's never on time or early to the party. He's always late. His instincts are trash. So I was like, well, okay, give me something, bro, because they would rush him off the edge from time to time. Give me something as a pass rusher then. No. Very monotone as a pass rusher. You just get a straight bull rush that leads to nowhere. And so he doesn't offer any value as a pass rusher. So, yeah, despite all this athleticism, and again, maybe his instincts get better with coaching here, right? Maybe it gets better because again, he's got the tools to be a problem. I just don't see it happening personally. But much like I said about the first two guys we talked about, Carlin Viggers and Tim McKay, wouldn't shock me if Cam Arnold ended up here as a member of the practice squad. Everybody can't be a member of the practice squad. So how he plays in the preseason, how he performs in camp is going to go a long way in determining if they decide that he's worthy of being one of the 16 members of the practice squad this year. So we'll see. Up next, Ale Cajo. Wow, what an interesting young man this is. So, Ale Cajo was guaranteed $75,000, which is a lot more money than I thought he would have to be given to get him here. It was the third fewest amount of money guaranteed the Commanders gave to any of their UDFAs. So 6'1.5", 231 pounds. So that's pretty solid size, right? Athletically, he checks the boxes. 4'5" flat, so he can move. He can pick them up and put them down. 33-inch vert, a 9'11" broad. So all of these are solid numbers. So what you have to know is you got to get the entire backstory for Ale Cajo. He was rated the #2 linebacker in the nation coming out of high school and the 32nd best prospect in his high school class. When you're rated that high, you end up at Alabama, which is where he ultimately was to start his collegiate career. Do you know when his collegiate career started? Take a guess. Just take a guess. Red Wing says 2019. Anybody else want to take a stab at it? Jeep Commander says 2018. Anybody else want to take a stab at it? 2020. Yeti Man says that the dude says 2017. 2018 is when this man's collegiate career began at Alabama. 7 years ago. He transferred to UCLA in 2021. Played that entire season, then had a foot injury that saw him miss all of 2022 and 2023. And came back and finally played this year in 2024, or last year in 2024. But only played in 8 games. So there's, like, to me, in my mind right now, there's only one reason he's here. We'll talk about that here in a second. Well, two reasons, I guess. So his pros. He's got good pedigree and a really good athletic profile. As you can see in front of you, he can run. He's quick. He tested, fairly well for someone, especially for someone who was out of the game for 2 years, right? And this guy was an athlete. This guy was highly regarded coming out of high school. Like, he didn't just forget how to play football. So there's that as well. The next pro is he's got outstanding character, mental toughness, and resolve. DQ loves a good story, right? What's your deal? What's your background? What's your story? What's your why? Stories don't get much better than Ale Cajo's, right? A lot of adversity, a lot of having to overcome. Somebody said, is he 38 years old? Look, man, I told you this is an old group, right? We got dudes that were in college for 6 years and 7 years, and I'm just like, Jesus, like, what are we doing here? You know, we're making sure that nobody's under the age of 24. Is that what we're after? Is that what we're trying to do? Like, it's crazy this year, right? So his story is a unique one, and it's full of perseverance, and it shows his mental toughness and his intestinal fortitude. His next pro is a big one, because that's why one of the reasons why I think he's here. These next 2 pros are the reason why I think he's here. First things first, he's a special teams fiend. This man blocked 4 kicks in a 3-year span, and 3 of them came in one season back in 2019 when he was a member of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Of those 4 kicks that he blocked, 2 of them went for touchdowns, including the first game of his career at UCLA against Hawaii. He blocks a kick, a punt, and it's recovered in the end zone for a touchdown. So when I tell you this dude is a special teams fiend, he's a special teams fiend. Now, I will tell you that he has not been the same special teams wise since the foot injury. Now, if he can get back to where he was, and there's no doubting that could take place, to where he was pre-injury from a special team standpoint, he's our new Nick Bellore, right? That's what you groom him to be. There's a purpose here for Ale Cajo, right? You're our new Nick Bellore. Nick Bellore is going to be retiring probably in 2 years. He signed a 2-year deal. He's already 36 years old. This is probably it for Nick Bellore. You groom Ale Cajo for 2 years to become the new Nick Bellore, and you turn him loose. That's what you're hoping he becomes. I got no issues with it. And then the last pro is his relationship with Ken Norton Jr. He calls Ken Norton Jr. his mentor. He said he's the greatest player coach he's ever had, and he considers him a true friend and mentor. He said one of his worst regrets in life was not being able to play for Ken Norton when he was there as the linebacker coach at UCLA. He missed his window. Norton was there in 2023. He was out that season, and he said it haunts him to this day that he didn't get to play for him. Ken Norton Jr. loves this kid, adores Ale Cajo. Part of the reason he's here, right? Do me a solid. Give this kid a chance. If you don't like him, you can cut him, right? Also, we know Adam Peters went to UCLA, so I mean, every year we get 2-3 UCLA guys, right? That's not a coincidence, people. Okay, if you haven't figured it out by now, it's not a coincidence that UCLA guys are littered all over our, practice squad or UDFAs every year. There's 1 or 2 of them. They didn't cut Kaz. They cut everybody under the sun. Every dude they got their hands on that was here before they got here, get the hell out of here. They kept Kaz Allen. We didn't even know Kaz Allen was still here. His cons, his age. I don't even know how old this dude is. I tried to find it. Nobody has, like, when he was born. I'm just going to assume he's 25. I'm just going to assume he's 25 years old. Injury concerns. Obviously, the foot cost him 2 years of service. So, obviously, it's something that was a major deal and could easily come back. He said the rehab process was the most difficult thing he's ever endured in his life. The mental toll it took on him. At one point, he wanted to stop playing football altogether. And he said it was Ken Norton Jr. and another fellow teammate that had a similar situation. You might know who he is, Latu, who, remember, had to medically retire from football because of a neck injury that he sustained while a member of the Washington Huskies, then transferred over to UCLA, was given medical clearance, and it was his story and his ability to overcome not being able to play football that helped Ale Cajo be able to get back on the field in 2024. Football inactivity. Again, if you're looking for him to do anything other than play special teams, you're wrong at this point, right? He didn't play like middle linebacker. He didn't play inside backer for 2 years. So at this point, I just see him as a special teams guy. And then last con is really only a special teams contributor at this point. I mean, how else could you see him as anything else right now? And maybe somehow he rediscovers his ability to play inside backer at the NFL level. I just doubt it. At this point, you say, Ale Cajo, can you solidify yourself? Can you carve out a niche for yourself as a core special teamer? If the answer is yes, there could be a spot on this roster for you. Not this year, more likely than not, but next year, for sure. Or the year after that, if you hang around long enough. Hell, by the time he gets an opportunity, he might be 30. Who knows? Anyway, that's Ale Cajo in a nutshell. Next up, Jacoby Jones, wide receiver, UCF. So let's talk about Jacoby Jones, what he brings to the table. I know guys like him who have a name that has, been popularized by someone else. I know that guy has to suck, I bet. Like, if I'm a kid, don't name me Michael Jackson, please. If our last name is Jackson, don't name me Michael. Like, come on, man. Give me a shot, right? Now, he didn't know Jacoby Jones was going to be Jacoby Jones. I don't know if his parents knew that or not. I can't say, but it is what it is. Anyhow, let's get to Jacoby Jones. So the money that he was guaranteed here in Washington was not disclosed. I couldn't find it anywhere. So don't know how much he was paid. I know this much. It wasn't more than Tim McKay's money. I doubt that it was more than Carlin Viggers' money. Those were the only two in the 200s, if I'm not mistaken. I'd be shocked if they guaranteed him, more than 100, but that's nor here nor there. He's 6'1", 225, as you can see, which is a unique size for a wide receiver. Ran a 4.68, which is part of the reason why he didn't get drafted. 31.5-inch vert, part of the reason he didn't get drafted. 10.2 broad, not bad. But again, the athletic profile, very underwhelming, right? To say the least. He had 22 catches for 327 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2024 as a member of the Knights. His best season came back in 2022 when he was a member of the Ohio Bobcats of the MAC. It's the MAC, young Scrappy. 45 catches, 776 yards, and 6 touchdowns in 2022. He then parlayed that season into transferring over to UCF. Upon getting there, he immediately sustained an injury, missed the entire 2023 season. He sustained an injury 3 games in to the 2023 season. A major leg injury, a lower leg injury. We were never told what it was. So, it could have been a torn ACL, could have been an Achilles. We don't know. But it limited him to just 3 games. So he missed pretty much the entire 2023 season, came back. And in 2024, 22 catches, 327 yards, 2 touchdowns. So his pros, his frame, it's a unique frame. At 6'1", 225, it's a frame that is imposing. Like, That's A.J. Brown territory. That type of size. Like A.J. Brown looked, because A.J. Brown is so damn big, like physically big, like 220 pounds big, 225 pounds. You think A.J. Brown's like 6'3". No, A.J. Brown's 6'1", okay? But he's so freaking physical that you forget that he's not 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", right? So it's one of those types of frames, right? Plays with grit and toughness. When you watch him, he plays the way that they want the receivers here in Washington to play. There's a level of physicality. There's a level of grit and toughness that he plays with on every snap. Whether he's run blocking, whether he's digging out of safety, or he's catching the ball and running after the catch. Speaking of which, physical run after the catch. This guy is a load to bring down after he catches the football. So one of the games I watched him in was against Arizona, because it was one of his best games. He had two really big games this season, two 200-yard games, right? One against BYU, the other was against Arizona. So I watched the one against Arizona, and he's carrying dudes. Like, there was like 5 dudes trying to tackle him, and he's like, normally when a guy catches the ball or is running the ball and he's still on his feet and it turns into a rugby scrum, it's because offensive linemen have entered the chat and now they're carrying him and pushing him up the field. He was doing this by himself with 5 Arizona Wildcats grabbing him, jumping on his back, trying to get him on the ground, and he's just dragging him. Like, he's so physical with the ball in his hands. He plays faster than his 40 time. Like, yeah, he's not a blazer by any stretch of the imagination, okay? I'm not telling you that he's out here running, like during the game, he's running a 4.48, okay? 0.2 of a second faster. But he probably plays at like a 4.6 or 4.58 type speed. Like, he's not as slow as the 4.68 may indicate when you watch him play. Make no mistake about it, though. He's not blowing by anybody. He will block for food and is willing to do the dirty work. And again, at that size, for what we're looking for, they want a big physical target. He is that, and he's willing to do the dirty work. They want guys that are going to be aggressive, that are going to block in the screen game, that are going to block in the run game. And he fits that bill, right? He fits that bill. So his cons, outside of his weight and physical run after catch, no discernible traits. He doesn't really do anything exceptionally well, outside of run after catch and his weight being what it is at the receiver position. Outside of those two things, you're just like, he's real nondescript. Won't win many foot races. A 4.6. I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. He'll win some, right? He won't win very many. Low production rate last 2 years. Obviously, the 2023 lower body injury really hindered him. And then coming back from that, because they had high hopes for him. He was supposed to be like one of their go-to receivers at UCF when he transferred over from Ohio. In the spring, he was their leading touchdown receiver when they were doing spring ball. So they thought he was going to tear it up for him. And then he gets injured. So the low production obviously did not help him. And then, of course, the testing didn't help either. And then major leg injury in 2023. Yeah, we talked about that. And he'll be 24 years old in July, just for good measure. Again, it's a pretty older group, right? This is a geriatric group that they're bringing in here of UDFAs. So I digress. That's Jacoby Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Off to Trey Rucker, safety out of Oklahoma State. So Trey Rucker's money was not disclosed. So I could not track down how much he was being paid, guaranteed money-wise. Can't imagine it being very much. I do not think he was a very highly sought after prospect. So he's a guy that I could see carving out a niche for himself here. Because he does things that coaches love. I'll expound upon that. He's 5'11 and a half, 203 pounds. So that's good size. Obviously not the height you're looking for, but the 203 pounds, that's pretty solid for a safety. Transferred from Wake Forest after his sophomore year of 2020. Career totals: 8 tackles for loss, 6 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, and 1 forced fumble in 58 career games. All right. Played a lot of football. Pros: physical style of play and his play demeanor. He wants to hit anything that's moving. He'll come down and hit you. He plays with an aggressive downhill demeanor. Coaches love that shit. They eat that shit up. And he doesn't miss. Once he's got you in the crosshairs, you're going down. You're going down. He's a tackling machine. You know, we're talking about a safety here. We're not talking about a linebacker. We're talking about a safety here. He had 100 tackles in 2023. 100 tackles in 2023. He had 84 this past season. So 184 total tackles the last 2 seasons. He plays with tremendous instincts when attacking the line of scrimmage. I wish I could take Trey Rucker's instincts and implant them in Cam Arnold. That's why you can't trust a man with 2 first names. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. I wish I could take Trey Rucker's instincts and put them in Cam Arnold. You'd have a hell of a linebacker. He wouldn't be a UDFA if we were able to do that. And vice versa. I wish I could take Cam Arnold's athleticism and give it to Trey Rucker because he's not athletic. He knows it. There's nothing wrong with this dude. He just didn't run a 40. Why? Because he knew he wasn't going to run fast. But boy, does he attack the line of scrimmage aggressively. And he makes up for his lack of foot speed with tremendous instincts. You don't have to be the fastest guy in the world to make tackles behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage for 2-yard gains. You don't got to be the fastest guy in the world. You just got to know where the hell to be and trust your eyes and shoot your gun. You could be the fastest dude in the world, but if you don't trust what you see, you're still slow. You might as well knock your speed down 1/10 of a second. He's next pro, he's very detail oriented. He's where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be there. He takes great angles in terms of his pursuit, and it usually yields a very favorable result. Getting guys on the ground, getting a pass breakup, getting there upon the ball arriving and it resulting in a PBU, or hitting a guy as soon as he's going to cradle the football and now it's incomplete. Last pro, he's always around the ball and will battle in coverage when asked to do so. It's not something you really want to ask him to do very often, but if he's asked to do it, he's going to do it to the best of his abilities. He's going to compete, and he's going to give you a chance. He's going to give you a chance. His cons: long speed is an issue. He's not a fast guy. You can see it on tape. He's not extremely fast. And you know how I always say, you know what I always say? What are you hiding? I was like, well, what's his injury? So I go to look up his injury, right? Because there's got to be an injury. He didn't run a 40 the entire process. No injury. Just chose not to. He was at the Big 12 Pro Day. Just chose not to run a 40 because he knew he was going to bomb it. Well, you can't hide, bruh. Like, you not running a 40 perfectly healthy, that's not going to cut it. The further away from the box he gets, the less effective he becomes. You've heard that story before. It's a lot more pronounced with a guy like Trey Rucker, though. His change of direction and agility are lackluster. So again, all of the athletic things that you would like to see, there's a reason he did no agility testing. There's a reason why he didn't run the 40. He doesn't want those things to be a part of his resume because it's going to hurt him, not help him, which I get. I'd rather you just not know and have to guess than to put it on tape or to put it on record and you go, oh, like, you want to know, Xavier Restrepo gets drafted if he doesn't run a 40. I bet you someone takes Xavier Restrepo if he just doesn't run a 40. As productive as he was in college, for as savvy as he is getting open, that scared teams away. If teams were just forced to use their imagination, they probably would have pegged him at a 4.5 something, maybe low 4.6s. He still would have gotten drafted. That 4.8 scared people. Damn near 4.9. That scared people. I get it. But you can't hide, right? We know what you are, and the tape says what you are. So that's Trey Rucker in a nutshell. Next up, Ricky True Lies in my barber. Defensive tackle out of UCF. So our second UCF night of the UDFA variety. Let's talk about him. So, Ricky Barber was offered $45,000 guaranteed to sign as a UDFA here with the Commanders. It's the fewest dollars guaranteed to any of the Commanders' UDFAs. It's the least amount of money. Okay. Doesn't mean that they don't want him. Obviously, they do. Doesn't mean he can't be productive, and doesn't mean he can't make this roster or make the practice squad. Just means that there wasn't a lot of competition for his services. That's what that means. 6'1", 296 pounds. 5'2" flat, or 5'2", 40, which isn't really important. What is important is the 10-yard split, which was 1.78, which is not bad, actually. As you can see in his composite speed grade. It's not bad, the 10-yard split. 30-inch vert, 9'1" broad. Again, not bad numbers. And you kind of see that when you watch him play, right? He transferred from Western Kentucky. Started his career out as a hilltopper. Started there for 2 years, or played there for 2 years, transferred over to UCF, where he played the final 3 years of his career. 30 tackles for loss, 15 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 6 pass breakups in 64 career games. That's a lot of damn games. Sheesh. It's a lot of games. Pros. Compact, low center of gravity frame. At 6'1", just shy of 300 pounds. He's got the kind of frame that lends itself to him winning the leverage battle on most snaps, if utilized correctly. Low man wins in the NFL often, and he's a guy that has, you know, the type of frame that will allow him to do exactly that. Next pro, initial quickness and burst off the ball. There are times that you see flashes of a guy that could be a real headache at the NFL level. There are other times when you don't. Some of that probably has to do with the gas mileage meter, right? When he's fresh, he's vibrant, there's a lot of juice. When he's out there for the 8th play of a drive, not as much left in the gas tank. Relentless energy and pursuit. Generally, when he's on the field, you're getting everything he's got. There wasn't any times where I watched him and I said to myself, Ricky, what the hell is that? I can't get jiggy with that shit. Every time he was out there, he was emptying the tank. He's stout at the point of conflict with the ability to find the ball carrier. So he does a good job of standing up in offensive linemen and peeking around, right, to see where the ball carrier is, to see where he needs to go, or at least stick his arm out to be a hindrance to that ball carrier. He constantly finds his way into the backfield. Now, this comes with a caveat. He does not finish those plays often enough, however. So it does come with a bit of a caveat. He does not finish those plays often enough. Cons. Initial juice isn't sustained long enough for consistent wins. Translation, I talked about initial quickness and burst off the ball. You see that. But it's not sustained throughout that rep for him to get to the ball carrier. Do you know how many times he got pressure on the quarterback and couldn't close the deal? And how many times he got in the backfield and couldn't get to the running back? Disrupted the play, though, which is a lot of times all you're looking for with a defensive lineman. But there are times where you see him do something and you're like, oh, shit. But he doesn't finish. You know, he'll beat the offensive lineman across his face at the snap, but somehow that lineman will ultimately recover, get in his way, and that initial juice off the snap isn't sustained long enough for him to. He starts out winning, but as we've seen in the NBA playoffs, even if you're up by 20, no lead is safe. He'll get the initial lead, but he can't keep it, and he ultimately loses the rep. There's no backup plan if his initial plan is thwarted. So if he in his head says, I'm going straight bull rush on this thing, he goes bull rush, and that offensive lineman is able to anchor down. And that when I talk about initial juice, that includes the bull rush. His initial bull rush, it's got shock and awe to it. And that offensive lineman will be on his heels for a little bit, and he'll give ground, but eventually he's going to sink those hips. He's going to drop that anchor, and then Ricky Barber's bull rush is going to stop dead in its tracks. So initially he was winning, but he didn't have enough juice to complete the task. And now that offensive lineman bows his back, holds his ground, and Ricky Barber can't get to the quarterback, right? If he says, I'm gonna beat him with quickness, swim move right off the snap, right across his face. If that doesn't work, there's no, all right, I'm gonna spin back and see if I can't get him to overset, trying to stop my quickness and spin back and use that, aggressiveness against him and get to the quarterback. There's no secondary move. If that first move doesn't work, he's got nothing. He's got nothing. Last con is he doesn't disengage consistently enough to affect the run game. So oftentimes when he gets blocked, he does a great job of holding the point of attack, right? He just doesn't get off of the block to make a play on the running back. You know how many runs I watched where a guy ended up getting 12 or 15 yards and they ran right past Ricky Barber, and he didn't even as much as stick an arm out or anything to try to slow him down. He just engaged with the offensive lineman and couldn't get off the block. You got to at least try to draw a holding penalty, something. You got to force something. So Again, they're here for a reason. Every single one of these UDFAs are here for a reason because they're flawed. And in most instances, because most prospects have flaws, they're all flawed in some way, shape, or form. No prospect is perfect. But if you're a UDFA, more likely than not, your flaw or flaws are fatal or presumed to be fatal. So that's Ricky Barber in a nutshell. Again, another guy. I'll tell you, I'm going to just say this. Even though Norrell Pollard last year was way undersized, I liked him better than Ricky Barber. But I'll also say this about Ricky Barber. He gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback. A lot of pressure. Now, it doesn't always turn into sacks. But it's a lot of quarterback hurries, a lot of quarterback hits. Just something to stash away for a rainy day. Fintrell Cypress III. Cornerback out of Florida State. Tell you what, I like this kid. I like him a lot. I think he's got sticking power. I do. He was guaranteed $145,000, the fourth most of any Commander's UDFA. Okay. 6 feet, 182 pounds. So not great. Not terrible, but not great. Ran a 4.43 40, 38-inch vert, 10.3 broad. All good numbers. All good numbers. He's got one career interception. We'll come back to that. 26 PBUs, 38 career starts spanning 5 seasons. 23 of those starts have come in the last 2 years while at Florida State. Okay. He transferred from UVA after his junior year, where he had 15 starts spanning 3 seasons. He's a 6th-year senior. Again, so he'll be 24 this summer. Again, kind of sticking with the theme of old head prospects that the Commanders are bringing in here as UDFAs. Again, I don't really care about how old a guy is. I mean, Bill, JCM, our 7th-round pick, is 24 years old. I don't care. Right? But again, just something to throw out there, right? Pros, very fluid, easy mover. He's an above average athlete. I love the way he glides around the football field. His transitions are clean. His plant and drive, click and close ability, his ability to mirror underneath and match. It all looks good. It all looks good. Next pro. He's not afraid to challenge receivers at the line of scrimmage, despite his size. He's not afraid. He's not scary. All right. I love his temperament. He has the mentality of a dog-ass competitor. You would think he was Carlin. You would think he was Carlin Viggers size, the way he plays, right? He's a willing tackler. I'm not telling you he's the best tackler in the world. I didn't say that, but he's not afraid, and he's not looking to be a bystander. He wants to smoke. He wants to smoke. I'm not telling you that he's not going to take a bad angle and let a guy get outside of him when he's got outside containment. I didn't say that. I just said he wants to smoke. Sometimes to a fault. I'm watching him against Duke, and I'm like, bro, you got outside contain. You cannot collapse inside and let that guy turn the corner on you. You can't do that. That is your responsibility. He wanted to get in the mix, though, so bad that he forgot, oh, shit, I got outside contain. I got to spill this run back inside, or at worst, push his ass out of bounds. He can't turn the corner on me. But he wants the smoke. I like that. I like it a lot. He competes at the point of catch. He's not giving away free lunches around here. You want it? You can have it. You're going to have to work for it. You want to eat? You're going to have to fight me for this food. That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. And he's got plenty of starting experience. As I mentioned, 38 career starts, 23 of them over the last 2 years at Florida State. Keep in mind, Florida State was an undefeated team back in 2023. He was the starting corner across from Thomas, who got drafted this year in the draft, right? So Fintrail Cypress, the third, is no one to scoff at. He's not just some Joe Schmo they offered an opportunity to. If we keeping it a bean, I like him more than Carlin Viggers. He's just not as big. His cons. Now, again, there are flaws. That's why he didn't get drafted. Okay? Of course there are flaws. Right? None of these guys come without flaws. Can be bodied by bigger wide receivers. Again, he's 182 pounds. I'm not telling you something that you don't already know. Will open his hips too soon from press coverage. So, there were times, I told you, he does not mind getting in someone's face and deleting the airspace. But with that comes technique, and you better have it. Because if you open your hips too soon, if a guy gives you a stutter and acts as if he's going outside to release outside, and then you open your hips to him, and he crosses you over for a slant, you're doomed, bro. You're beat. Either you got to grab him, or he's off to the races on this slant if it's on the money, right? Or if he's trying to get inside of you and he gives you an outside fake release and you bite, and then he gets inside of you, now you're in trail technique and now you're fighting for your life. And you see that with him because he often finds himself in a position where he can't find the football. We'll talk about that here in a second. Speaking of which, next con, doesn't locate the ball down the field. He is a premier face guarder. Oftentimes, he's face guarding because he's not in a position to turn and locate the football. Why is he not in a great position to turn and locate the football? I want you to look at his composite speed grade. It's great, right? Yeah, it looks good. A lot of green there. You see that yellow? Man, does that yellow tell a story? So there's a play against Duke that illustrates this so beautifully. And when I watched this play, I said, let me go back and look at his composite scores to see if it matches up. And God damn it, it did. So there's a wheel route. He's outside playing cover 3. They run a wheel route combination on his side, and it's out of a jet motion, ghost jet motion. So he bumps out, the wheel comes out, and initially he's there. That's the 10-yard split, right? Initially he's there on the little out of the wheel. He's right there in the guy's hip pocket. As that guy turns up the field and Fintrail turns up the field with him to run, that dude blows by him. Like, oh, shit, if the quarterback was looking, he could have let it go. And then Fintrail turns on the speed at the end, gets back into his hip pocket as they got further down the field. So you see that 10-yard split where he's right there. The 20-yard split, it's not great. That's where that acceleration kicks in. And you're like, he just don't have it, right? That gear is jammed. He just don't have it, right? And then when he needs to get to that top speed, that's when the gear, it jiggles a bit, and then you can push that bitch into 5th gear, and he's got the ability to get all the way up to that top level and get to and tap into that 4-4-3. So What I'm telling you is, off the line of scrimmage, he doesn't have the patience that's required to allow that receiver to declare what he's doing, which is what you want your corners to do. You want quiet feet from a corner, right? While the receiver doing all this shit, you just stand there. Okay, go ahead, do all that shit. I don't care about none of that. Where you going, inside or outside, so I can figure out how I'm about to play this? Because if you're going outside, I'm going to ride your inside hip, push your ass towards the sideline. If you're going inside, I'm going to cut you off. You got to go through me now, right? But if you open your hips and they want you to, and then they cross you over, now you playing from behind. And now you can't find the football a lot of times, right? So, another thing, he doesn't trust his eyes enough to use his athleticism to jump routes and make plays on the ball. And that's a shame that he doesn't trust his eyes enough to allow his athleticism to take over. Because if he did, he'd be a big problem. A big problem. Because he's twitchy. He's got long speed. And he's got the ability. But the eyes in the transition from I see it to telling my feet to go, there's a disconnect there. And you know where that shows up? I have a problem with this. I have a big, big problem with this. You know I got a problem with this. This man has played in over 40 collegiate games with 38 starts. You're not allowed to have one career interception. That's not okay. That is not okay. It's not. You're venturing into Benjamin St. Juice territory. I still have PTSD. You're venturing into Mackenzie Alexander territory. That's not okay. You can't play that much football and have one interception over 5 years. If you're just in the right place at the right time, a ball that is overthrown, a ball that's tipped in the air and caroms to you, you should pick that shit off. Right place, right time. How many times Carlin Viggers has a pick six in a game where the ball was thrown right to him? All he had to do was look up. Oh, shit. Ball. Touchdown. Thanks. You got one interception, bro. Carlin Viggers has more interceptions than you do, and he's only started 12 games. How? Why? Make it make sense. Guys that do not have ball production scare the shit out of me. Because I can't state this enough. In a league with professional passers, the only thing that is going to scare them, the only thing that is going to deter them from targeting you is if you take it away. If you're just a PBU machine, I'm going to keep targeting you because the only thing that could happen is you could deflect the ball in the air and somebody else pick it off. You're not going to pick it off. So there's no penalty for me coming at you. Why do you think teams always went after Benjamin St. Juice? They knew he wasn't taking the shit away. The best he could do was knock it away. But more likely than not, he was going to either commit a penalty or he's going to give up a pass completion. So I'm going to keep targeting his ass. Why not? What I got to lose? I actually like Fentrell Cypress III a lot. And it wouldn't shock me. To me, his skill set says that he has a better shot at making this team or making the practice squad than Carlin Viggers does. But Carlin Viggers has all of the numbers, the size, the length. You know, I like Fentrell Cypress III a lot. He is my second favorite UDFA that I watched. I just wish he would catch the football. I wish he had more ball production. If he had more ball production, he probably gets drafted, to be honest with you. And that can't be the only reason he didn't get drafted. It's some of these other things that I've talked about too. But ball production is pretty big. It's a pretty big deal. So anyway, I digress. Next up, Ja'Cory Brooks, wide receiver out of Louisville. So let's get to Ja'Cory Brooks and talk about what he brings to the table. So his money was not disclosed. I was really interested to see what his money looked like. And I couldn't find it anywhere. I really searched hard for his in particular because I wanted to know if there was real competition for him. Like, he was a guy that most people thought would get drafted in the later rounds, of course, but he didn't get drafted, obviously. And I would assume that there were teams that were interested in his services. So I wanted to know, what that looked like, but that number was not disclosed to us. So it is what it is. So as you can see, this is not pretty that you're looking at in front of you. His raw score is the reason he didn't get drafted. I mean, who are we kidding? This is the reason why he's sitting here as a UDFA. And even after the process of the draft, he wasn't immediately signed, right? He was out there for a little while. Remember, the draft happened. We didn't find out about Ja'Cory Brooks until that Monday, right? Most of the guys that were like, you got to go, they happened on Sunday night, right after the draft was done. Ja'Cory Brooks wasn't until Monday. There were stories and articles published about how he still was unsigned on Monday. So I don't know if there was a lot of teams jockeying for his services or not. And this is the reason why. Right here, you're staring at it. That said, 6'2", 184 pounds, 4'6", 40, 30-inch vert, and 9'8" broad, all of which are grotesque, nasty work, diabolical, even. Okay? 61 catches for 1,013 yards and 9 scores in 12 games in 2024 at Louisville. As Rico said, a huge part of the reason why Tyler Show got drafted. Of course, we all know he was an Alabama transfer, top 35 recruit nationally in his high school class coming out. So this guy was and still is very talented. Okay. Pros. He's got a rangy frame, right? It's a little gangly even, 6'2". Yeah, that's nice. 184. Boo, not nice. But it's amazing. It's just funny watching him because his frame does not suggest that he'd be this dynamic run after the catch guy. But he is. We'll get to that in a second. Next pro, outstanding catch radius with good body control. He can pluck the ball out of the air from different angles, contorting his body. We all saw the one-handed catch where he was interfered with. He can do some pretty nice things when attacking the ball in its flight, right? Really good catch radius as well. Run after the catch ability. Let's talk about it because to me, that's one of his most endearing traits. His frame does not strike me as one where you would see a guy catch the football in traffic, take a shot from a safety, a blow-up shot, and just bounce off of him like it didn't exist, it didn't happen, and keep running. But you see this with Ja'Cory Brooks time and time again on film where he runs a route, catches the ball, knows he's going to get hit, takes the hit, and keeps on ticking, keeps on running. Catches a hitch underneath, makes a guy miss, is up the sideline, stiff arms another guy, cuts back, and you're like, bro, how did you just get 30 yards out of a 5 yard? You're not fast. You're not twitchy. What did you just do? He's got an innate ability to make people miss, to be physical. And I think some of that comes from his special teams background, because I know the speed isn't dynamic and all of that shit, but he was a kickoff return and punt return guy in high school and at Alabama for a little bit. Not much, but it's there. And you kind of see it show up when he catches the ball. And then there's a toughness, an innate toughness that I didn't expect. When I watched him, I was like, this frame, there's no way he's a tough guy. But he is. Above average 50-50 ball and contested catch guy. Like, yeah, he's not separating. He's not going to separate very often. Although, and this is another pro, and I'll go ahead and link it in here, he's actually a solid route runner, and he ran an entire route tree while at Louisville. So there is that. They didn't just have him running a steady diet of goals and hitches and wide receiver screens. You see him running, bench routes. You see him running, deep comebacks. You see him running outs. You see him running dig routes, right? You see him running slants and shallow crosses. You see him running corner routes, right? You see him running a post. So you see him running just about everything. So that's good. But in saying that, he does a great job of releasing off the line of scrimmage. But even if he wins at the line of scrimmage, he's not getting away from said defender, right? So he's got to make tough contested catches. And he does specialize in being able to do that. He's above average in that department. So he's got special teams value as well. He offers special teams value as well. I told you he returned kicks in high school, both punts and kickoffs. He returned kickoffs and punts at Alabama. Again, a brief spell, not a lot, but enough to let you know I'm capable. And then he blocked 3 kicks in his collegiate career. So he offers you that as well, right? Translation, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make your roster. That includes playing special teams. I'll do it. Good to know. Good to know. And then lastly, he's a guy that knows how to find the end zone. Had 9 touchdowns this year, had an 8-touchdown year at Alabama, had 19 total touchdowns in 3 years. So again, he's a guy that just has a knack for finding pay dirt. Cons, below average athlete. I don't have to explain it to you. You're looking at it. Enough said. Doesn't separate consistently. Kind of explained that already as well. Again, when you don't have great agility, you look at his composite agility grade. That means you're not getting in and out of cuts. You're not getting in and out of breaks quickly. You're not snapping shit off. You're not able to deceptively show a guy a fake inside and go outside. It's just not happening quick enough. With these elite athletes that are going to be trailing him on plays, he's going to have to be physical at the next level. Use his frame to box guys out and use strong hands to secure the football, which is okay. There are plenty of guys in the NFL. Jawan Jennings is a great example. Now, again, Jawan Jennings is 215 pounds. So they're not the same thing. Okay. Jawan Jennings basically fell to the 5th round, 5th, 6th round, wherever it was, because he ran a 4.7. Jawan Jennings is 6'3", like 214, 215. Different body type. but he's made a living in this NFL, being a physical possession receiver. There's a niche you can carve out for yourself. His frame just isn't 200 pounds, and I don't know if his frame can carry 200 pounds. Hands aren't always reliable. Now, that was something that was a little disappointing. You know, every now and again, you would get a concentration drop out of him. Shallow cross, running across the field, wide open, worried about run after the catch before he secures the ball. It's a drop. Like, those type of things can't happen. And it wasn't consistent, but it was enough for me to go, bro, you got to clean that shit up. Right? It's a small problem. I don't need it turning into a big one. Right? And then lastly, he's not much of a perimeter blocker. Like, he'll get in the way sometimes, but for the most part, again, he's one of those guys that's like, I'll block if you absolutely need me. But if you don't, I'll just let my guy go in there and it's whatever, right? If you happen to get out there and my guy's standing in front of me, I'll put my hands on him. Yeah, sure. I'll get in the way. But he ain't looking for work. Trust me. That's a mentality that he's going to have to change without question. Right? So, I'm here to tell you that Ja'Cory Brooks could definitely carve out a niche for himself, not just on the practice squad, but on this roster. Like, there are things he brings to the table that I don't know if we have on this roster right now, outside of maybe Noah Brown. You know, obviously the 6'2" size is one thing, right? Nobody else on this roster offers that, first and foremost. Nobody else does. I think Michael Gallup is 6'1", maybe Michael Gallup. Let's look up Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup maybe is 6'1". I don't think he's 6'2". Let's see. Michael Gallup is 6'1". Thought so. 6'1" for Michael Gallup. So Michael Gallup gives you a little bit of that. And if Michael Gallup is back to being a Michael Gallup prior to the injury and prior to, you know, him having like sort of a mental breakdown after being released by Dallas, if he's had a mental refresh, he can give us everything Ja'Cory Brooks could give us in a body that is ready for NFL work and in a guy that's already done it at the NFL level. Like, I don't see Ja'Cory Brooks beating out any single receiver on our roster right now. But again, most of these guys are on one-year deals. You bring him in, you work with him, you put him on the practice squad, and then next year you hope he's ready to contribute, because Michael Gallup probably won't be here next year. KJ Osborne won't be here next year. Noah Brown won't be here next year. You see where I'm going with this, right? So he feels like a shoo-in for the practice squad. He feels like damn near an absolute lock for the practice squad. I don't see him beating out any of our receivers whatsoever at this current juncture. He gets a little bit stronger. If he comes back next year, and let's say he's 190, and, you know, he's playing with a little bit more aggression and a little bit more, I could absolutely see him being a fixture in this offense next year. So that's Ja'Cory Brooks. Last but not least, our old friend Robert McDaniels, or Daniel, excuse me. Don't want to put an S on that. Robert McDaniel. Jackson State safety. A guy that, much like Carlin Viggers, was someone that this team clearly was interested in pre-draft process and wanted to position themselves, went out to dinner with him after the HBCU combine, wanted to, and his pro day, wanted to really position themselves to be able to land him should he not be drafted. He wasn't drafted. They swooped in and got their guy. 180K for Robert McDaniel. Third most of any Commanders UDFA. And they really like this kid. And to me, he is the cream of the crop of this group of UDFAs. If you ask me who has the best shot to make this football team, I'm going to tell you it's Robert McDaniel. The only guy that I think has a legitimate shot at making the active 53-man roster is Robert McDaniel. He, without a doubt, is a member of the practice squad should he not make this team's 53-man roster. But there's no guarantee that somebody else doesn't swoop in and take him and put him on their active roster, depending on what type of summer he has, right? So let's talk about him. 6'2", 211 pounds. So right there, we're checking off boxes. That's the type of safety that they like. That's the type of body type they're looking for. Now, again, this means nothing, but it's worth noting he'll turn 25 in October. So it goes with the theme of these old head UDFAs they brought in this year. Again, doesn't make me one bit of difference, right? And it shouldn't make one bit of difference to you. This is not the NBA. This is not basketball. You shouldn't care how old these prospects are, okay? He ran a 4.55 40 at his pro day, 39-inch vert and a 10-10 broad. Check, check, and check, right? A lot of green here, right? He fits. 10 tackles for loss, 5 PBUs, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 4.5 sacks. That is not a career, folks. That is 2024. Okay. Let me say that again. 10 tackles for loss, 5 PBUs, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 4.5 sacks. That all came in 2024. He had a weird journey, right? He's 25 for a reason. He had a weird journey to get to where he is. He started out at Jackson State. Then he felt like I can play at a Power 5 FBS school. So he went the JUCO route, came out of that, and the offers just weren't there. So he goes to Alcorn State, another HBCU in the SWAC. And he wasn't getting the clock that he thought he deserved. So he goes back to where it all started in Jackson State. And in my mind, I'm saying, bro, had you just stayed at Jackson State long enough for Deion to get there, you probably would have been at Colorado with Deion. You effed up. He didn't know Deion and Shador and company were coming. He didn't know. But had he stayed there and waited, he would have been blessed, and he probably would have ended his career at Colorado, Buffalo, and he probably would have got drafted in the NFL draft. But you know what? If that all transpires, he's probably not here with the Commanders. So everything happens for a reason. His pros: height, weight, speed, athlete with tremendous traits for the position. I mean, if we're talking about an NFL safety, if I said, give me your measurables for an NFL safety, you're probably going to say 6'2", 215, runs about a 4.5, jumps about 40 inches. I just described to you Robert McDaniel, pretty much. So, yeah, he looks the part, right? He passes the eye test, checks off all the athletic metrics you're looking for. Yeah, that'll about do it. Outstanding work down around the line of scrimmage. Boy, he doesn't miss down around the line of scrimmage. He is an animal, an uncaged beast down in his lair, which is right around that line of scrimmage. He does yeoman-like work down there. Blitzer off the edge, whether he's going after the quarterback or a tackle for loss on a running back. He's excellent in underneath coverage. He's a guy that, you get those misdirection plays Tight end sifting across the formation. He's out there in the flats to make the tackle, right? He's everywhere. He's ubiquitous when it comes to being down around the line of scrimmage, and he's instinctual. He just goes, man. Like, he's not waiting. I don't need your permission to go make a play. I see it, I'm going to go make it. Again, if I could take his instincts, Trey Rucker's instincts, and put them into Cam Arnold's body, have a dangerous football player. But don't worry, we got one here with the instincts and the athletic exploits to match. Plays the game aggressively with a hunter's mentality. He's out here looking to do work, period. He's looking to hit something. And again, he's one of these guys, much like Trey Rucker. If he gets to you, you're going down. On some Mary J. Blige type shit, you're going down. Next pro, he's rugged yet a reliable tackler with aggressive demeanor to match. He wants all the smoke in terms of being physical, in terms of being a dog. He's got that dog mentality that they're looking for here. He's got that dog mentality that they're looking for. A guy that's going to hit you and ask questions last. Hit you first, ask questions last. Versatile defender that played box safety, slot nickel, and out on the boundary when necessary. I saw him do all three. Where he's at his most comfortable is in the box. But they put him on some slot duty. Say, hey, man, need you to take care of that. He's like, I got you, boss. And they say, hey, look, the tight end split all the way out wide, bro. Running back split all the way out wide. I need you to go out there and handle that. He's like, I got you. Don't worry about it. Receivers out there. I need you to go out there. He's like, okay, I got you. Don't worry about it. Don't ask him to do that too often now. You get your feelings hurt. But he's capable. He's more than capable. Cons can be over-aggressive, leading to trailing on plays and panic grabs. So for as much as I talk about his aggressive demeanor, it can also be a gift and a curse. I much rather have to reel a guy in, or as a wise man once said, I'd much rather have to tame a crazy man than to revive a corpse. Yeah, he's a little bit OC. I can deal with that. Give me that guy. Right? This is where that Talanoa Hufanga conversation comes into play. There's a conversation out there floating around in the what's the name of that the guy that does that big ass draft guide every year, the Beast, Dane Brugler. He called him a Talanoa Hufanga type of safety. This is what you're talking about. Talanoa Hufanga was really OC. He was everywhere and nowhere all at the same time, right? Sometimes he was where he's supposed to be. Sometimes he wasn't. But whatever he was doing the shit 110 miles an hour and aggressively. But sometimes it can bite you in the ass when you're super aggressive. It can get the best of you without question. He said, our next con, the further away from the line of scrimmage he gets, the less effective he becomes. Again, his home, his breeding ground is that box area, about 10 yards and into the line of scrimmage. That's when he's at his best. I'm not telling you that he's a fish out of water. You take him 20 yards down the field. I'm just telling you he's less effective. Okay? He's no longer in his comfort zone or in his domain, right? But he can function out there. This isn't a Trey Rucker situation where you're like, not sure, right? Athletically, I'm not sure he can keep up. But this is why, as he gets further away from the line of scrimmage, he becomes less reliable. His hips are a bit sticky, and it causes him to get lost in coverage at times. So that transition from, manning somebody up to a zone turn to turning and running, it's a little sticky. Those hips are a little sticky. It's not that fluid turn and transition like we talked about with Fintrail Cypress, the third. It's a little sticky. That gives the guy a step. And all of a sudden, you're playing catch up again. And now we grabbing him. Now we get the flag thrown on us for pass interference. And then this last con is less of a con and more of a question. How can he adjust to a step up in competition? We've never seen this guy out of his HBCU bubble. You would have loved to have seen him at some sort of all-star game amongst his peers to see if it felt like he belonged. Like, it would have been great to see him like at the Senior Bowl. I think he was like at the East-West Shrine game or something like that, but you would have loved to have seen him at like the Senior Bowl, somewhere like that. And I don't think he was at the Senior Bowl. He might have been at the Senior Bowl. But ultimately, you got to ask yourself, those kind of numbers, 10 tackles for loss, 5 PBUs, 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 4.5 sacks. He did what he was supposed to do, which is dominate lesser competition. Stand out amongst the crowd because you are superior to them. I always tell you, when you play in a lesser conference or you play at a lesser level, I only got one prerequisite. Dominate the competition. Make sure you leave no doubt. If I always say, and I've heard other people say this, I didn't invent this, right? But in my mind, I go into the tape saying, if you are who you say you are, I shouldn't even have to know your number. I shouldn't have to know who you are, what you look like, what your number is. All I need to know is what I'm watching. And you should be jumping off the tape, and I should be able, that's the NFL guy right there. That happens when you watch Robert McDaniel on tape. That's the NFL guy right there. Amongst these dudes who will be playing flag football at their local gym or, playing some, local football, right? That's the NFL guy right there. So he checks off those boxes. So that, my friends, ladies and gents, those are your UDFAs right there. All 10 of them. Now, I didn't break down any of the guys that got invites to camp because usually camp invites don't get deals. So if they somehow make it through this process and and the guys up in Ashburn are impressed enough to extend them an opportunity, and remember, we're at 90. So they have to cut someone to make space for them. They've got to like them so much so that they're willing to move on from someone that's already here. If they do that, I'll break that person down when that time comes. Because the 10 guys that I just broke down, unless something changes, they're all going to camp. So they're going to have a shot. Those camp guys, those invite guys, they aren't guaranteed anything but these next 3 days. That's it. So just wanted you to understand that. Anyway, I digress. June TV, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show June TV some love. Welcome June TV with open arms. Welcome to the squad. June TV. Rosario Satara Pileski, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Really, truly do appreciate you. As always, shout out to my guy, Russ. Hey, Louie. Finally did my first book event. Oh, man, that's awesome. Man, I'm so proud of the growth and everything that you have accomplished in such a short amount of time. I know it hasn't felt like a short amount of time, but it feels like just over the last 5 years, you released your first book, then you released another book, then you started advertising, and now you're doing events. I love the growth and the progression that I'm seeing from you, man. It's awesome, bro. It's awesome. He said, the replay of my speech is on my channel. My channel is called Let's Save Cinema Productions. First of all, y'all go give my man Russ a follow. Y'all go over and subscribe to his channel. Check out his content. I'm going to make sure I go do that right now. Let's Save Cinema Productions. I said a brief acknowledgement to you and Bad Dog Sports. Ha ha. That's crazy, man. I really, truly do appreciate you. And continue to grind, man. This is awesome seeing your growth, as I mentioned, man. You're doing big things, man. You're doing big things. Keep it up. Voices of Martians. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Let me write down the name of your channel real quick so I don't forget. I've been meaning to sub you up for the longest time. Let's Save Cinema Productions. All right. Voices of Martians writes, we're playing in Spain. Got to plan my trip now. HTTC. So yeah, I've seen, my wife asked me, is this real? I said, no, it's not real, but it might be, right? So Rio put it in the our group chat, and he's like, y'all, y'all take this with a grain of salt, but they already floating this out there. And Ed said that the guy that put it out was pretty spot on last year. So again, I'll wait till the schedule release comes out. I'm not running with that. But if Ed said the dude last year was pretty spot on with his assessments, I got no reason to believe that this one isn't true. But I already told y'all, nothing will surprise me. I already told y'all what I think it's going to be. It's going to be massive. We're going to be everywhere. They're pushing Jaden Daniels to be the face of the NFC and one of the faces of the league. I'm not shocked if they're sending us to Madrid. We're due for an international game. I've said that already. We haven't gone since 2016. We're due for an international game. What better way to reintegrate us into international play than with Jaden Daniels coming off of the greatest rookie season the league has ever seen at the quarterback position? So again, we'll see what happens, but I saw something asinine today, right? And I don't believe it. And I don't remember where I saw it, which is why I don't bring like stuff like this to your doorstep. But since we're having this conversation, I saw something along the lines today of someone had spoken to a former league scheduler that said, look for the Commanders to have double-digit primetime games, which they're not having double-digit primetime games. But it wouldn't shock me. Like Rico put the number at, what was his number? Like 7 or 8. I wouldn't be shocked if it got to that number, right? I wouldn't be shocked if it got to that number. We're getting 5 primetime games, which is the full allotment, plus a Thanksgiving and maybe a late season Saturday. And, a Black Friday wouldn't shock me. Like a Christmas wouldn't shock me. And then there's still, if we're good, which we assume we're going to be, there's still the chance that you could get flexed into something too. So, yeah, trust and believe. It's going to be crazy potentially. Anyway, TJ Ryder, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. TJ Ryder writes, thanks for always making vids for us hardcore Commanders fans. Hey, we ride together, man. Like, I know my content isn't for everyone. I know that. But for the hardcore Commander fan, I'm always going to hold you down without question. Always. Like pebbles. Always. I'm always hold you down. So you're thanking me. I'm thanking you for continuing to support. Every time I put a video out, you don't have to agree, but you're going to check me out. You're going to hit the like button and you're going to support. And I appreciate that. So Really appreciate you, TJ. I think that's the first time I've seen your name too. So you came out of lurking just to tell me you appreciate me. And I appreciate that because I know that was tough for you. So I appreciate you, TJ. Anyway, as a fellow lurker, I know a lurker when I see one. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys. I don't know when the next time will be. Hopefully I'll be able to get something to you this weekend. But I'm going to be out of the office. It's Mother's Day weekend. Shout out to all the moms out there. Big ups to all the mommies out there holding down our families, and taking your rightful place in the family as the new matriarchs. And we really appreciate you guys. You know, without y'all, we don't exist. So shout out to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day, and keep being awesome. We love you. So from me and my family to you and yours, happy Mother's Day. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. God bless and good night.